call the order of the Economic Growth Infrastructure Committee up for that. Forgot the thumbs up. So at the time, it's 9:35. Apologize for the delay. First order of business is call the roll.
Jackson?
Here.
Spiz?
Here.
Markham?
Here.
Powell? Here. Wiper?
Here.
Miller?
Here. We have a quorum. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, now we'll move to the approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? All right, moved by Commissioner Spiz, second by Commissioner Jackson. We have all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the agenda. Is there any changes or corrections to the agenda? Any motion? We'll say moved by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Spiz. Have a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay? Ayes have it. All right. Making it too easy on me this morning. So we have, we'll move for the public comment. Is there any public comment today? All right, if there's no public comment, we will move on to the, we'll close public comment and move on to communications.
Move to receive and file communications.
All right, moved by Commissioner Spiz, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. All right, let's see now, is there a voice vote on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. All right. So now we have amendments to the agenda. Yeah. I apologize, not to the agenda. We just have the items 8 and 9. There's a few numbers that were a typo. So we have item 8, the number, as you see, the project number is different than the one that was put into the packet, so that the, now it reflects the proper number. Same with item 9. So, all right, all right. So let's move on. Excuse me, to the agenda, the regular agenda. All right, first item is the Department of Central Services. We need a motion?
I'll move that.
All right, moved by Commissioner Wiper, seconded by Jackson. All right, discussion. Welcome.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Excellent.
Hey, I like that.
I'm well too, thank you. Mr. Chairman, Dave Vanderveen, Director of Central Services, and with me is Ms. Bush, who's the Manager of Aviation, with 3 referrals from the Airport Committee.
All right, welcome.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you. The first item is the approval of the contract with MDOT for the AWAS system, which is the Automated Weather Observation System at our Troy Airport. This is a renewal of an existing contract. So it just continues on.
There are 41 of these around the state. They give automatic weather for pilots coming into airports without control towers, so it's really a good enhancement for aviation.
Most definitely. I've studying for my drone license, so this is part of it.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
You know what we're speaking of
Check
then.
the weather before you fly that drone.
Most definitely.
Exactly.
All right, do we have any discussion, any questions? Commissioner Powell?
This is a question outside of this, but real quick, do you guys offer internships out there for students, high school students at the aviation? If a student was interested, or a mentoring opportunity for a student?
Currently, we don't have any internships available at the airport, but many of the businesses on the airport do. So if you have
When you say many of the businesses, what you
they
talking?
will, well, there's companies that are based on the airport that are independent from the airport operations administration.
Oh, okay.
So those independent companies oftentimes will accept interns.
Are those, them companies aviation focused though?
Oh, yeah, they're
Oh,
100%
okay.
aviation.
Okay, okay, all right. I was just inquiring, a kid in my district is interested in learning how to fly, and I thought about our airports offering such of an opportunity.
If you want to send some information to me, I will put you in touch with folks that might consider
Okay,
that.
Thank you.
We also have summer positions out there for, it gets them out to the airport and exposed to aviation. The county has summer positions.
Oh, okay, all right. Do they have to be of 18 or
Yes.
older? Yeah, this is a high school kid. He's
Yeah.
just trying to get an early focus on it. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. He's under the age of 18.
There's also a career expo that's coming up in November for high school students that is going to, will be making a presentation at and have a booth available, and they can learn an awful lot at that career
Okay.
expo.
I'll send you an email to get that information.
Perfect.
Thank you.
November 8th, put it on your calendar.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Jackson,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Wipers.
Yes.
Miller,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Second item would be the Department of Central Service, the Aviation Division Airport and Lease for, is it Tenneco? Is that how you say it?
Correct.
Incorporated.
This is essentially a renewal of an expiring land lease for,
I'm sorry, we have to move it, I apologize. So it's Commissioner Spiz moved it, Commissioner Jackson seconded it. I'm sorry.
not a problem. This is a renewal of an expiring land lease with Federal Mogul. They've since been acquired by Tenneco, and so this is a 20-year lease that'll continue their operation of their corporate flight department at the airport at Oakland County International.
So, is there any discussion? I just have one question. I noticed that the first 2 years has a dollar amount on it. After that, is that like a negotiated?
It's in the land lease that we have the opportunity to increase every 2 years, and it's typically increased a penny per square foot of the
Okay.
parcel.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Spiz,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Wipers,
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Miller,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is Department of Central Services. Welcome again. For the approval of, for airport land lease for the Charter Township of Washington. Do you have a motion?
For Waterford.
Waterford, I'm sorry, what did I say? I'm sorry. Waterford.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Wiper, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. All right,
Thank you.
discussion.
This is again a renewal of an existing land lease with Waterford Township. This is for property in our runway safety zones that is leased for the use of the kids' soccer fields. And we're proposing a 5-year lease to continue with the program.
Any discussion?
In those,
Commissioner Wiper.
safety zones, thank you. In the safety zones, I mean, they're just a green space for
Yes.
planes.
We had that aggressive noise program and safety program at the turn of the century where we bought all kinds of, 50 houses out there and also vacant properties. Part of the property lends itself to the township use because it's adjacent to one of their parks, so we've leased it to them. The issue here is we don't want structures up in the air that'll interfere with the airplanes.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I think it's great because I know that soccer fields are few and far between. And it's one of the sports that it seems like it's growing, which is good again.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that.
Great.
So any further discussion? Call the roll.
Markham,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Wipers.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now we have the fourth agenda item, Department of Facility Management, approval of water main and sanitary water sewer easement for tax parcels. Do we have a motion?
I move it.
Moved by Commissioner Spiz, second by Commissioner Jackson.
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good, I'm Paul Zakos, I'm property manager with Facilities. Art Holdertz is director, Art's my boss. I handle the leases, the easements, and the property purchases for the county. In this case, out at the Rochester Hills Court, there was water and sewer easements that were never obtained. And after a security work that was done out there, they added a hydrant and they did some other work. The consultant worked with Rochester Hills to get those easement documents ready. We've reviewed those, and these are now just basically on-site water and sewer easements, so that the city will have those taken care of.
Any questions or any discussion? No discussion? All right, call the roll.
Powell,
Yes.
Swiper,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have the fifth agenda item, Department of Central Services, establishment of a comprehensive central service support interlocal agreement.
I move it.
Moved by Commissioner Spiz, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. Good morning, how you doing?
Good morning, I'm Todd Burkle, Manager of Support Services, and my boss again, Dave Vanderveen.
He's a popular man this morning.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be over pretty quick. We don't know though. We do a lot of work for municipalities around the county, about 40 of them, as a matter of fact, for mail services, for taxes, water bills, and then we also build up police vehicles, the light bars, the communication systems, and even some mechanical work. They're finding because of economy of scale, we can do it cheaper than they can, and it works well with us financially too. So this is an agreement, a uniform agreement that we will enter into with the different municipalities and townships, if approved. It's been prepared by Corporation Counsel.
All right, any discussion? Commissioner Markham?
I just have a couple of questions. So this is a new interlocal agreement. It's
The
not
agreement's
an
new, but we've
extension.
been working for the people in the past, yeah.
It's all the same communities that we've worked with.
Correct,
Have
or
they had-
anybody else that would want to enter into such agreement with us.
And prior to this, it's been done individually, not as one big agreement?
No,
or-
the change here is we're unifying the agreement.
Okay. I think you answered my question, but maybe expound on it a little bit. The idea that we're servicing vehicles for a bunch of other communities seems a little odd to me. So why does that make sense?
Todd?
It's really not so much the servicing of vehicles. Most of the work that we're doing is a lot of the Clemis communication equipment, the radios, MDCs, things along that line. We did have a couple of agencies, Farmington Hills being one of them, that asked us if we would completely build their patrol cars for them. And we have done that over the last 2 years, and it's about 8 vehicles a year. Now, a couple of the smaller agencies, Keego Harbor, Lake Angeles, over the last year came to us when they were having some radio work done and said, hey, we're having some troubles with our vehicles and they can't seem to diagnose it at the dealer. Would you mind taking a look at them? So we have done some service work for Keego Harbor, and we also did a little bit of work for Lake Angeles. It's kind of crazy things, like Oxford, we put communications equipment in a boat. So it's,
Okay. My only concern would be this isn't a natural business for us, and so it's not something we would want to grow. It's more like it's targeted and it makes sense for the situation at the time, which these examples you've just given seem to.
And we do this for our own cars, patrol cars and
Right.
fleet as well, so we've extended it to other municipalities.
It's not like, doing their standard oil changes and that sort of thing, though.
we do that for Oakland schools for the ISD, and it's more just a convenience factor for them.
Okay. All right, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Jackson?
So, question being, this type of work, it helps our communication, it helps our communication, stay in sync, right? Because, I'm aware that Clemis is a countywide communication system that enables different localities to communicate with one another, right? So is this part of the reason why we take on these interlocal agreements for updates or installations or, I see, is it Pat here? Pat Coates is here from Plymouth, right? And she's an expert as well with these systems. Is my questioning right? Is this the reason why we enter into these interlocal agreements, so we can kind of all stay on the same page collaboratively?
That's true, and I guess it gives us some assurance when there's an actual issue that comes up, whether it's a communication issue with the system or whether it's an installation issue. And I think Pat will agree, back years ago when we switched to radio systems and the MDCs, there was a lot of issues with outside agencies doing installations on these devices and not putting them in correctly. Another
Okay, thank you, because I just remember in the past, just having issues with even installation historically with the Clemens system and certain costs certain local municipalities were incurring just to stay up to date with the current versions of things. So this helps with that, right, with the local municipalities and their costs.
So commissioners, yes, excellent question. There's multiple facets to the Clemens footprint. It really is 9 or 10 counties now in the region. And there is an issue with installation of the equipment, but also the technology. And I think where you were talking, some of that was they weren't keeping current on some of their technologies that they use. And we do have standards by which they do keep up to date. And so we do work for Clemens out of IT as well, through some of our agreements, as well as them, they making sure that the equipment is put into the cars correctly. So yes, you're correct. We're trying to do that to help them make sure they stay current, as well as make sure the standards are there, so when they use the equipment and use the technology, they get what they need.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Not that this is technology, but a lot of the things that we do routinely for a lot of different communities. That community doesn't have that much experience in doing it because they don't do it that often. Their fleet is much smaller.
Any other discussion? No, I just so the record, every agreement you go into, it goes to Chairman Woodward, correct?
That's correct.
That's all that question. I just want to make sure. I saw it on this one, but I don't know if it was, he signs off on this and then it's.
He'll sign
going
every
forward.
individual one. That's correct.
That's all, the only question I had.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, call the roll.
Whiteford,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes,
Spiz,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
All right, now we have the 6th agenda item, Department of Information Technology compensation, comprehensive IT services interlocal agreements.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Wiper, second by Commissioner Jackson. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning,
We've seen you a
Commissioners.
time or two.
Yes. So we're here this morning with a couple renewals and a couple new agreements to the IT service agreement template that we brought in several last month, and we are continuing to execute renewals as the agreement expires, and then also we have some new ones. You'll see in the resolution, we have 2 more courts, the 12th District out of Jackson and 28th District out of Southgate, as well as some additional communities and counties. You'll also notice in the table in the resolution, these are primarily the first 2 exhibits, which are online payments and over-the-counter payments. So that's electronic payment function, credit card payments for those entities. You'll also notice Macomb County has the exhibit for data center usage, and that's a renewal and goes back to a time when we assisted the county with a backup data center running their systems out of our data center. So that is, we don't do that for a lot of entities, but Macomb County is one of the ones that we provide that backup capability.
That's when
for.
their data center burned, their county building burned. And so we actually ran Macomb County's systems out of Oakland County for a period of time. So one thing, if I could too, is Genesee County you see on there.
Yes.
And it was in the news recently that they've been hit by a cyber attack. our team is actively involved with them and in Genesee County trying to help them recover. It's a serious attack. It's pretty much hit all of their systems. And we're in there, we've had 4 or 5 people in there trying to get them to recover so that they can still provide the services they need to provide. So when you see this agreement as a renewal of their main contract, you're gonna see that addendum come through that talks about the services that we provide as well. So they're going to sign that addendum as well, so that we can go ahead and make sure we can bill for the services we need to bill for and the work that we're doing for them.
Okay. Any discussion? No discussion? I have just a couple questions. You mentioned the server. So when we have our server and people sign on to us, let them use that, do we have a backup to the backup? So we don't
Yes.
have that problem?
Yeah, so we have, I can say some things here publicly, but we do have backups to the backups, and we have multiple data centers. And then we also do disaster recovery tests. So we have multiple ways to go ahead and recover our technologies when we need to, and we actually practice that on a regular basis to make sure we can do it.
Yeah, I just, technology these days, when you see
Oh, yeah.
people, you hear people getting taken over at big companies or counties, you're like, we all have backups to backups, external hard drives, stuff like that, simple for us, right? So that was just a question, I don't know.
Well, and if you think about technology overall, our data center used to house gigantic computers. I mean,
Right.
they just took up, now we're using probably maybe 20% of our floor space
Right.
in our data center. So we've actually housed some other entities in our data center. So now they have backup and recovery, and we're using our fiber connections that we invested in over the years to make sure they can go ahead and do that. So we're doing a great deal of work to make sure there's redundancy built in, as well as the ability to recover if there's a disaster of that type. Now, one thing to mention, so I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner. The issue that's happening in Genesee is not unlike the issue that's been happening to other local governments here in Oakland County that we've also assisted. We've also had this same virus attempt to hit Oakland County. We've put enough controls in place where we've been able to deal with it quite quickly. Some of these others are not as up to date with cybersecurity as we are, and that's why we dispatched our cybersecurity people out to help them. We have incredible experience with what's happening right now, as well as the fact that the citizens of Genesee County need the same ability to do their business with their county. So we see it as a neighbor, and we're gonna do what we can to help them. So we're making sure that we're out there helping those that need it.
With that, the process that we blocked and stuff like that, do we use the blockchain for that?
Actually, they did it.
Sorry, that was.
You wanted me to say blockchain.
I did.
The answer is no.
So that was
good- that was good,
A little
though.
humor.
Yeah.
So I see we have more entities coming on with us. Is that going to work for reducing the rates?
Yeah,
that sort? I
that's
know you're
actually the
working on
goal.
it.
That's where and we're actually working on a rate study for the commissioners. But the more we bring into the fold that can actually take, and remember, once we train them, they kind of just fly on their own. They're just using our technology at that point.
Right.
The more transactions that are actually transacted, it starts to bring the per unit cost down. And our goal then is to affect our rates here at the county to bring those down corresponding. So we're getting to a mass now where we're starting to see impact on the rates that we're gonna have to charge for the services.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Powell?
Another off topic, who will I talk to in regards to, IT stuff with passwords?
As far as,
You need your password reset?
Well, that,
or-
and then when I was in DC, they told us they automatically boot us off if we don't connect to the internet within 30 days here on campus.
I can talk to you
We'll
offline
check
after
on
the
it, yeah.
meeting.
Okay,
Um,
We have
a
but
process to
also
help with
have a
that.
service center number that can reset your password.
Well, I just,
But
we can talk offline, I just wanted to ask, okay, thank you.
yeah, and Commissioner, one of the reasons why we do some of those things is part of the security for our network is if there is a device that doesn't connect for a long period of time, then it could potentially become a security concern because it may not have been patched. It may not have had all the security downloaded to it to protect the network. So we do have some policies in place for that, and we can go through that with you.
Okay, and then I heard it was a compatibility issue with the iPhones, with our system? iPads, I mean?
Well, the one area where there is a compatibility issue is with the HIPAA training
Right.
in particular. Some of the training uses a technology called Flash, and Flash doesn't work on the iPads. And that's an iPad Flash issue, that's not an IT issue, if you
Oh,
will.
okay, got it.
We are looking at, when we do.
Our next
the-
training,
the
we're gonna
bid
change
For the
that.
training, 2 years from now, when that training goes out for bid and comes back. And Flash is being replaced by a number of technologies anyway.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Jackson,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, so gives me pleasure to introduce the seventh agenda item, miscellaneous resolution 19079, Board of Commissioners recognizing Oakland County as a welcoming county. I'd like to please join us. We need a motion. Motion by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Markham. Welcome. So I will read just I read the title. I just have a few things that I wanted to say about this. This is definitely something that is needed in Oakland County. So I was looking at this resolution and putting it together. It was just the thought of how important it was to so many people and what this resolution really means for so many people in Oakland County. And I just, some of my favorite quotes actually really dig into this resolution is darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The time is always right to do what is right, and our lives begin to end the day we become silent about all things that matter. All those were quotes by Martin Luther King. So this resolution, I believe, is less about external behavior and more about our internal heart change, more like a heart posture. Less about sympathy, more about empathy. And I found that a good definition of empathy is the direct identification and with understanding of and vicarious experience of another person's situation, feelings, and motives. So it's my honor to present this resolution. So I need a motion? No, I'm sorry. Now we get to discussion. We have just a couple of speakers.
Good morning. My name is Danny Middleton. Go ahead.
Yeah, welcome,
Okay,
yes.
Okay. I'm the Communities Coordinator for Welcoming Michigan. I'm excited to be here today and about the proposed welcoming resolution, and we're eager to support it. We want to thank Commissioner Miller for introducing the resolution and thank all of you for having this discussion today. Our director at Welcoming Michigan couldn't be here today, so I was going to read the statement that she had submitted. Okay. Welcoming Michigan is a project of the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center and a member of Welcoming America. Since 2011, we have worked to foster mutual respect and understanding among immigrants and receiving communities. We are proud to partner with local governments to advance these goals. In Michigan, there are 20 cities and counties that have committed to making their communities more welcoming and inclusive, including 5 here in Oakland County. These communities are building relationships and making institutional changes to ensure that both US-born and immigrant community members experience equity and belonging where they live, work, and play. Passing a welcoming resolution is an important step for local communities to take. It signals that leaders recognize and value the contributions of all residents, including immigrants and refugees. This is especially important in Oakland County, where 12.4% of the population is foreign-born, the highest percentage of any county in the state. Oakland County is home to many organizations led by and serving immigrants of all backgrounds. The county has a long history of welcoming those seeking refuge, including Jewish, Vietnamese, and Chaldean refugees. The welcoming resolution is a significant statement of the county's values and beliefs. It tells newcomers and longtime residents alike that they have a place here and that they belong. It encourages community partners to undertake initiatives to make the county more welcoming and build a sense of unity among residents. Most importantly, the resolution uplifts the innate human dignity that we all share. We encourage commissioners to approve the welcoming resolution. Your leadership will help ensure that Oakland County is a welcoming community for all residents, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, or national origin. We support Oakland County's desire to create a community that celebrates the contributions of all and works together for a shared future. If you have any questions about our support, please do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
Good morning, Chair Miller and
Morning.
honorable commissioners. My name is Steve Gold. For the past 30 years, I have lived in Huntington Woods, Commissioner Zach's district. And for most of that time, I was employed by Macomb County. Incidentally, I was there when our data center burned, and thank you, Oakland County, for saving our bacon when it was important. During the time I worked at Macomb County, I was, like Kathy Forsley, first the health officer for a number of years, and then was appointed Director of Health and Community Services by our county executive. I served in that capacity and on our One Macomb Diversity and Inclusion Initiative until I retired 2 years ago. My mandate during the time I was Director of Health and Community Services was to add value to what government was already providing to its citizens. And I attempted to do that in part by aligning the county to take best advantage of demographic change. Like Oakland County, Macomb is a destination county for immigrants. There are more than 10% of Macomb's residents, and as Denny said, there are more than 12% of Oakland County's residents. So I found myself working frequently with ethnic chambers of commerce, foreign consulates, immigrant business owners, and employer of largely immigrant workforces, and agencies in all sectors which provided aid and assistance to immigrants and refugees. So what did we learn in Macomb County that could easily be mapped onto Oakland County? We learned that immigrants, and I'll say that my remarks are focused on economic issues because this is the Economic Development Committee. We learned that immigrants are highly entrepreneurial. They are nearly 3 times more likely to start new businesses than native-born residents are, and they also help prevent the loss of existing jobs. Immigrants to Macomb County created or preserved more than 4,000 local manufacturing jobs that otherwise would have vanished or moved elsewhere. Immigrants are hardworking. They comprise a higher proportion of the workforce than they do of the population. And in part, that's because immigrants tend to be lower in their age structure than the native-born population. Immigrants therefore tend to counterbalance the aging of our population, and particularly folks who are aging out of the workforce. Immigrants are very productive. They produce a higher proportion of the region's economic output than of the population. In Oakland County, immigrants pay state and local taxes in excess of $500 million annually, and their annual spending power exceeds $4 billion. Immigrants are overrepresented in key industries. In Macomb County, where they were 10% of our population, immigrants constituted 16% of those working in healthcare and 17% of those working in professional services. Immigrants can and do reverse population loss in aging central cities, as shown in Baltimore, Boston, Philadelphia, and elsewhere. Immigrant diversity attracts other American citizens. Nearly 5,000 U.S.-born citizens came to Macomb County as a result of our immigrant residents. Immigrants increase property values throughout the regions where they settle. Between 2009 and 2014, the recession years and the recovery years, immigrants to Macomb County increased the county's total housing value by over $135 million. In conclusion, immigrants to this county come from over 100 countries. In earlier generations, they were mostly German, Polish, Irish, English, and Italian. Now the top 10 include India, Iraq, China, Japan, and the Philippines. Like the Europeans before them, today's immigrants come to escape oppression and to seek economic advancement and better lives for themselves and their families. Oakland County was built by its earlier immigrants and can only prosper by welcoming those who wish to come here now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Farujacek. I'm going to tell you more of a personal story. I am the daughter of immigrants, and I think that this resolution is important now more than ever. Last week, I had an in-law misinterpret the 14th Amendment by stating that the amendment only allows for citizenship to be granted to persons born to citizens. The Supreme Court disagrees. The in-law seemed to have forgotten that, or maybe just didn't care, that I was born to a non-citizen. It was the first time I felt the sting that must be felt by so many immigrants today. My parents immigrated to America 70 years ago. They met and married in Detroit's Corktown. They came here speaking very little English, and they had almost no formal education. My mother was a poor laundry worker, and my dad was a self-taught baker. They raised 3 daughters at a time, and at a time when people still felt that educating a daughter was a waste, and they themselves had very little education. My parents made sure that we all graduated from college, Wayne State, Lawrence Tech, and the University of Michigan. And although they passed away, their legacy lives on in their 7 grandchildren, all of whom have college degrees, none of whom abused drugs or faced legal offenses other than minor traffic violations. Among the 7, one is a pediatric neurologist, another a lawyer, another a mechanical engineer, and another a film editor. Without this country's welcome, there would not be these 7 amazing people as citizens in this country, contributing and producing and adding to the wonderfulness of the country. And contrary to the media's portrayal of immigrants, my parents are the rule and not the exception. They simply came here for a better life and in turn made America better. The negative feelings towards immigrants transcends legal status and is felt by all immigrants across all generations. And you have in your power the ability to reinforce an important American value that is not assigned to political party or religion or ethnic background. This country has thrived by welcoming those who seek to adopt this country as their own. And this value needs reinforcement now more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there any discussion?
May I invite another community
yes.
member to speak?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
My name is Mitch Better Off Standing.
Could you just bring yourself a mic? Yeah, we need a microphone.
You got it. Oh, then I'll just. My name is Wissam Brico. I'm an immigrant student consultant. Thank you. Over at Oakland Schools. I'll also be sharing a personal story in my work in Oakland County. I came to this country back when I was 13 years old as an immigrant. Mom and Dad were all from Iraq. Mom is a physician, pediatrician from Iraq. My dad is a civil engineer back home. Came here, my parents gave up their careers for better lives for me and my siblings. So imagine after 19 years of being a pediatrician, now works as a medical assistant. My dad gave up his career and now still works in an assembly plant for Ford. Not one day we lived on welfare, never got food stamps, Medicaid, or any of those social services. My parents did this for us, for a better life. Many of our refugees, and I've had the honor to working with Welcoming Michigan and Steve Gold, and the work that Macomb County has been doing. I was harassed, bullied, targeted just because I'm from a different country. I didn't speak a word of English when I first came here. And I attended a school in Oakland County. We've came a long way for our schools. And I do a lot of professional development, and I thank you, Commissioner Jackson. You've attended a couple of our professional development on refugee war trauma, and war trauma in general. I'm working on something called a trauma mobile clinic to establish something like that for a mobile clinic to go from school to school. But anyways, coming back to this, I also coach the varsity program over at Pontiac High School, boys and girls. And for the last 2 years, I've seen or I've heard from some of our students that the stories of ICE patrolling some of the trailer parks in Oakland County, especially in Pontiac and some in Waterford. A lot of our kids are being labeled as truant, and they've been referred to our truancy department at Oakland Schools and been coming to court here in Oakland County. Kids are not skipping school because they don't want to go to school. Kids are staying home for fear that they might be deported. Again, from our school's perspective, and almost every single school district in Oakland County, or 28 school districts, are welcoming. I do what I do as an immigrant consultant. I'm a community member, and I go from school to school. I talk to ESL teachers, ELs, special eds, superintendents, principals, communities, parents, students. So for kids to feel welcome here in our country. The way I was not welcome the first 2 years. Back when 2011 hit and 9/11 hit, I was labeled a terrorist from my own Chaldean cousins. But I do what I do every single day, and I do what I do every day because I don't want any kid to feel the way I felt. 2 years ago, you saw the attack from some of our communities and the county on refugees not being welcome, and they got that across. We just last refugee resettlement meeting, we were told the Oakland County has not resettled 0 refugees in Oakland County in our last 3 months in our fiscal year. We did resettle a huge number from Iraq and Syria, but then due to federal issues. Anyways, we've gone a long way in our county, in our schools, and I feel like we're heading to the right direction right now, following the track of Macomb County. Our kids now feel that we're on the right track. There's a lot more work to be done in our county, but I think this is a huge first step in get at least the idea of Oakland County is a welcoming county. You know, that by itself is not going to solve much of our problems, but at least it's a first step that I really admire that you guys brought this to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell.
I just wanted to say I can feel your issue, because when the Paris bombing happened, I worked with a group of 10 Syrian investors who was trying to do some stuff in Pontiac, and I was floored when our community, knowing that we're minorities too, was not accepting of the Syrians at all. And when I look at this book, and I went to school with Hispanics, an Asian population. It was pretty diverse when I was at Pontiac Northern when I went to school. So just to, as an adult, see that and just see what, even though we don't talk about party lines, but some of the comments that came across party line individuals who impacted the heightness of the negative energy in my community about the Syrians coming to our community. So even though you say we've come far, Oakland County, we have a lot of work to do. Because even with still, the diversity issue is not represented here at the county. And as the Democratic Caucus, that is one of our major goals, to make this county, even employment here, more diverse. And all I can say is I'll continue to pray for you all, but I felt that firsthand, because I worked hand in hand with the investors trying to bring better to our community, but they were pushed out in a way. And the crazy thing is, refugees get to choose where they want to go. Nothing was even solidified. So for my community to give that type of energy, I was appalled about it. So I'll just continue to keep y'all in prayer, but just know that the Democratic Caucus is working to diversify this county. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. What's your name again? I'm sorry.
Wissam Rico.
Thank you.
With Susan Benson.
Oh,
That's
yes.
all I know. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you for speaking and sharing your perspective and your experience. And what I want to ask, as you both have said, you and my fellow Commissioner Powell just stated the same thing. There's a lot more work to be done. And so as we enter our census season, we have to make sure that we educate the immigrant population about the citizenship question and make sure that we get full or as much of full participation as we can in a system that we may not be trusting. So thank you for your work, and we all will continue to work to make sure that we all, or as many of us, can be counted.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I'd like to.
Commissioner Spiz?
One, make a comment, then I'd like to make a couple small amendments if possible, or at least discuss them. For many that know me, as I work
my day job outside of here, I work for a foreign-owned company, and I travel the world. I meet and talk to many different cultures and people everywhere I go, and we have a very diverse group of people that work within my organization from all over the world. My base day job is engineering, so we bring engineers from all over the world, from Mexico, from India, from China, from Japan, Poland, anywhere in the world. We have engineers that I work with on a regular basis, so I can understand the importance of immigration. So just wanted to make that statement. And then a couple things that I'd like to discuss and make a motion to make an amendment is the last whereas. The last sentence that says county a welcoming place for new residents, says from other countries. I actually think we should expand and say foreign and domestic, because we as Oakland County want to accept residents from anywhere around the Americas or any other country around the world. So I'd like to make that amendment. And then anywhere it says immigrants, I'd like to put legal in front of that. I think there's two places on it. The second whereas says all people including immigrants. I'd like to say legal immigrants are respected and valued. And then I think it's the second to last whereas the sentence says Michigan and is home to many organizations led by and serving legal immigrants and refugees. So I'd like to move that amendment.
I support this amendment.
So you're making one amendment or two separate amendments?
One.
One total?
Yeah. Let's see if I can show it to you. Just one for domestic and then serving legal immigrants and including legal immigrants.
We can.
Make copies.
So we're gonna call a short recess on this. Thank you. Yes. back to order here. So it's been moved and seconded for Commissioner Spiz's amendment. So the amendment is insert the second whereas. It goes whereas all people, including, and then the insert is legal immigrants. And then the eighth whereas, down where it says serving, his insert is illegal immigrants, or legal immigrants, I'm sorry. And then revising the following, the whereas county encourages, the last sentence is striking other countries, and then in place put both foreign and domestic. That's, any discussion on the amendment? Yep, Commissioner Jackson.
Okay, so, all of these are inclusive of this one amendment.
Yes.
I feel as though, for my own pleasure, some of this is acceptable and some of this is not. And why could it not be, kind of petitioned or parceled out or amended? Or could we amend the amendment to maybe, reflect two different parts of what's being asked? So, to the preference of the chair, could we, would you prefer to vote on this amendment and create another amendment in its place, or amend it?
I personally like the resolution as it's stated, but we can amend an amendment or we can vote on it.
Okay,
So if you,
I'll move that we go ahead and take a vote on this.
okay.
On the amendment.
I'm just, yeah, we're on the amendment. So, call a roll for the Commissioner Spiz's amendment to the Welcoming County resolution.
Markham,
No.
Howell,
No.
Wyper,
Yes.
Jackson,
No.
Spiz,
Yes.
Miller.
No.
We have 2 yeas and 1 nays.
Motion failed for lack of majority vote. All right, so now we have, is there any further discussion on the resolution? Commissioner Powell? It's just on what, now we're back to the original. Is there any discussion on the original resolution?
No, not the.
Okay. All right, I would just like to say that I thank you for everybody for the stories and coming out and giving the information, because I believe we're all created equal, we just have different walks of life. And this resolution will truly make Oakland County a place where we could live, work, and play. So we can call the roll?
Spiz,
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner
Clarification
Jackson?
about the amendment again?
The amendment
Would you
failed,
like
we're,
to offer, another amendment at this point?
no, if you wanna,
I would suggest, because it was brought forth, to revise the following, whereas Oakland County encourages our business, civic groups, schools, government agencies, and other community institutions to undertake their own initiatives beyond this resolution to make Oakland County a welcoming place for new residents from other countries, both foreign and domestic. I would like to revise the following as earlier offered.
okay.
To say,
Both.
that which I just spoke.
All right, so we say, so I have this correct, is you wanted to say,
You'll have to pass it out.
right, I'm just asking just for clarification. Where it will say the new residents from other counties, both foreign and domestic, so you're not taking anything out, you're just adding both foreign and domestic.
Yes.
Okay.
Instead of from other countries.
New residents, both foreign and domestic, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yes.
Basically, it's the same as Spiz one on this part. We are on the agreement with that, we just didn't want to leave
So we need a motion and a second to discuss. Motion by Commissioner Powell, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. All right, now discussion? Any discussion?
Clarify the motion one more time?
Yes,
To remove from other, just as I had?
correct.
Just the last whereas. Is recommended and implemented. On the last whereas, we want that to continue in the original.
My amendment, if, to that resolution is keep from other countries and then just insert both foreign and domestic.
But you don't have, do you have domestic other countries?
I'm just saying, I just feel like we don't have to, if we just keep countries in there, I'm happy with that, just the countries part. I don't feel it needs to be amended, but this is the motion on the table.
If I may?
Yeah.
I guess my intent was that it's, my read of it was that when you just say from other countries, it kind of puts the perception out, you're not accepting others in Oakland County from the United States.
Wisconsin.
Right, so that's why I took out from other countries, say, maybe if you put from other countries and domestic or something like that, something like that, okay. But when you say foreign and domestic, there's no domestic other countries. That's a wording thing.
Yeah, it's all wording, so that's.
Relates to residents.
Go ahead, go to the mic.
But with respect, you might say from all countries.
Thank you.
All countries
All
would
countries
include
would.
us.
Yeah.
All
Right.
countries. From all countries.
Yeah,
New residents from all countries, that would include the US.
so,
That's acceptable to me, because yes, that would include both foreign and domestic.
all right. So. He likes it. So I guess, so the amendment on the table is amended to just adding all countries, from all countries.
Replace other with all.
Right. All right. So I'm withdrawing mine. Yes, they're amending that one. This is what I like about this process, is we all get a chance to talk it out and figure it out and work together.
Okay, so to be clear on the amendment, you want to restate?
Yes, so to be clear on the amendment, it will at the end state for place for new residents from all countries, period. All right, do we have we have to call the roll, right? Call the roll on that, on the amendment.
Somebody second, who seconded?
Powell?
Yeah, they did it.
Yes.
Whiteford?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Spiz?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes,
Motion carries.
motion carries. So now we'll vote on the resolution with the amendment from all countries. Call the roll?
Spiz?
No.
Markham?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Whiteford?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
We have 5 yeas and 1 nay. Motion carries.
Motion carries. So thank you for everybody coming to speak on this. Thank you. So now we're on the next agenda item, which is, number 8 is the Board of Commissioners miscellaneous resolution 19052, Tri-Party Road Improvement Program, year 2019 appropriation, Charter Township of Waterford. For the pulverizing and resurfacing of Mace Day Drive from Lotus Drive to Williams Lake Road, project number 54762. Yep. Yeah, it's been moved by Commissioner Wiper, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. So now we have a report to amend, which is the project number. It's the project number 54762. It reads different in the body of the resolution, so that you'll see the typo in there. So just change the amendment. So we have, need a motion. That's been moved by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Wiper. Can we do, roll? Call the roll.
So Jackson? Yes. Spiz?
Yes.
Markham? Yes. Powell? Yes. Wiper?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Motion carries. So now we have any discussion on Board of Commissioners tri-party improvement? The resolution, no? Any discussion? All right, call the roll.
Spiz?
Yes.
Markham? Yes. Powell? Yes. Wiper?
Yes.
Jackson? Yes. Miller?
Yes. Motion carries, thank you. So now we have number 9, miscellaneous resolution 19053 for the Board of Commissioners, tri-party road improvement program financial fiscal year 2019 appropriation, Charter Township of Waterford, pulverizing and resurfacing of Midland Avenue from Dixie Highway to Oak View Avenue, project number 54772. Need a motion?
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wiper, supported by Commissioner Jackson. So then we have a report is so again, the project number reads differently in the body of the resolution. All right. Commissioner Spiz moved to amend. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Jackson. Call the roll.
Markham? Yes. Powell? Yes. Wiper?
Yes.
Jackson? Yes. Spiz?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Motion carries. So that was. So now we just have or is there any discussion on agenda item number 9 with the changes? All right, no discussion, call the roll.
Powell? Yes. Wiper?
Yes.
Jackson? Yes. Spiz?
Yes.
Markham? Yes. Miller?
Yes. Motion carries. All right, now we have agenda number 10, miscellaneous resolution 19056, Board of Commissioners, Tri-Party Road Improvement Program fiscal year 2019 appropriation, City of Novi, reconstruction of 12-mile road at Novi Road, project number 54551.
I would just like to.
We need to move it first.
Okay, I'll move this one.
All right, Commissioner Markham moved it, seconded by Commissioner Powell. Discussion?
I just wanted to point out that this was not originally on the road commission's schedule for this year, but the city of Novi felt that it was so important and such a terrible intersection, and that the city of Novi agreed to lend the money to the road commission to pull this job ahead a year. And then when it's done, the city of Novi will be paid back. But it was that important to the city, and we took money out of the general fund to do this. So we really need to fix that intersection. So, thank you very much.
I second that motion.
Yeah.
So any other discussion? All right, call the roll.
Wiper?
Yes.
Jackson? Yes. Spiz?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Powell? Yes. Miller?
Yes. Motion carries. Now we have agenda item number 11, miscellaneous resolution 19059, Board of Commissioners, Tri-Party Road Improvement Program fiscal year 2019 appropriation, City of Farmington Hills road construction on Orchard Lake Road from Farmington 13-mile to 14-mile, project number 50641. Moved by Commissioner Jackson.
Support it.
Supported by Commissioner Spiz. Any discussion? All right. Call the roll.
Jackson? Yes. Spiz?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Powell? Yes. Wiper?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Motion carries. Agenda item number 12, miscellaneous resolution 19077, Board of Commissioners, Tri-Party Road Improvement Program fiscal year 2019 appropriation, Township of Rose, reconstruction of Mason Street from Franklin Street to Milford Street, project number 54192. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
It's been moved by Commissioner Spiz, seconded by Commissioner Wiper. Any discussion? All right, call the roll.
Spiz?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Powell? Yes. Wiper?
Yes.
Jackson? Yes. Miller?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we have item number 13, the presentation establishment of Oakland County 911 change or charge informational rate and upgrade.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
That's not quite right.
Is that it?
No? Should be an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, the Excel, sorry.
Yeah.
Morning.
All right. We, you know, what we have here is the annual request here for approval of an operating surcharge. The resolution is not attached because this is for informational purposes only at this juncture, with an expectation that next committee meeting it would be passed. The principal discussion is the attachment to the resolution, which deals with the plan to upgrade and essentially replace substantial components of our existing 911 radio system. That is principally the conversation that would occur between the dispatch centers and those people in the field, portables and mobile radios, if you will, via towers. To that end, the request that we have is that right now we are receiving about 36 cents per device on individual devices as defined by the statutes, charged on a monthly basis and distributed to the county in order to fund this operation. The movement we're requesting is a 6-cent increase to 42 cents per month, which is the maximum that can be assigned without a vote of the people. So we're going up to the maximum. We need that in order to replace the equipment. This is a $57 million project, if you will, over a 3-year period of time, including the replacement of the mobiles, portables, much of the tower equipment, the back room, and of course, the consoles in the dispatch centers. And to that end, we have money set aside in the radio communication fund to the tune of about $28 million. So we've set aside quite a bit of money over the past several years to deal with this issue, but not enough to fully fund it. And to that end, we'll talk about what we did. Now, the history of this project goes back quite some time. It started with and this goes back to 2002, when the county implemented a countywide radio communication system over a few years. And it's been in place since that point in time. But with any technology wears out. It becomes obsolete. And to that end, our system is at that point where we have components that are obsolete. Example, the consoles in each of the individual dispatch centers. They were end of life in 2016. There are no parts being produced. We are cannibalizing in order to keep the system going. Consoles go down, no communication. 911, big problem. Long and short here is that you know, there are other components that are now reaching their end of life, including the mobile units as well as the handhelds. So we started a project about 2 years ago. We hired a group called Black & Veatch. Black & Veatch did a study for us to identify where the technology was today
and the approximate costs of the technology. And to that end, that study was incorporated in last year's operating surcharge request. We issued a request for proposal. Black & Veatch assisted us in developing it. It was over 300 pages long. Very detailed, very complex, and rather significant issue relating to even the development of that RFP. It was issued in January of 2018, and the two vendors that chose to propose, Harris, our existing vendor, and Motorola, the vendor that we now have tentatively selected, provided a proposal in April. We spent from April all the way until probably January, February, analyzing that effort. Black & Veatch did a great deal of the effort on a technical standpoint to assist us, as well as identifying the cost. There were a lot of questions. We must have had a half a dozen rounds of specific questions on a variety of issues in order to try to get explanations for us. All in writing, if you will. Very complex system. It's as much as a complex system as any technology that we've ever really contemplated. In fact, it's far more complex than the issues that we had in the 2002 endeavor, simply because the technology has changed. The technology's changed for the purpose of essentially providing more functionality than we ever had before, and to that end, that's one of the things that we have found to complicate the system. For example, our system in the past was a closed system. We used OakNet as a backhaul for the communications. Nobody can penetrate OakNet. They can't get in there. They do that, the system breaks. We know somebody's trying. This system, however, has ports where the system allows people to get into the system because we're allowing them to do it. Example, at some time in the future, and I think that you know, this will become a radio. To that end, it'll be a simple app on your phone. The problem here is this is cellular, and it requires a port to be opened up, and a port opening up into a closed system permits cybersecurity issues. So to that end, you know, that has complicated the issues. It also has added a significant amount of costs. Encryption added costs beyond what we expected last spring as well, and the upgrades of the network. To that end, I don't know what, oh, I'm still not up. To that end, we now have analyzed the cost and have brought to you the approximate amount of the project costs and the operating costs over a 13-year period in the memo. Clearly, we need the additional 6 cents, and then some. You'll see, you know, as I go through the PowerPoint, not the PowerPoint, the Excel spreadsheet, that there is significant difference between what we have already set aside and what's available. And to that end, we're going to have to issue debt. Now, there is one issue that I'd like to go over before we get into the actual effort here, is one of the significant open items, and here we go with EZNet. The county installed the EZNet system. In the past, the EZNet was a copper system that had connected the telephone companies to the dispatch centers. We voted this several years ago. It's now installed, up and running as of last summer. It replaced a 1963 copper network that was the backbone of voice communications for a long period of time, but could not address issues such as data, photographs, and other information that we now need to improve the communications. And to that end, we entered into a contract and the contract specified that we wind up paying about $3.4 million in the first year and $2.7 million ongoing. It's a hosted network. Now, here's where it gets complicated. The state has stepped into the shoes of many other counties and has provided reimbursements of those operating costs relating to this network. We funded its construction. The state's willing to deal with the operating costs. The operating costs are $3.4 million the first year, $2.7 million ongoing for the first 5 years. The problem here is the state ran out of money. They passed statutes last year to increase some of the revenue sources in order to provide reimbursements for those people who had not yet come on to an EZNet system, if you will. And to that end, unfortunately, the state has yet, this is the Michigan Public Services Commission, yet to hold a single meeting on this subject matter to distribute monies to the local units since that new law went into effect. It's been a year. That complicates my effort tremendously in terms of being able to project how much we're going to get. If we get it all, then I save $3.4 million in the first year and $2.7 million thereafter. If I get nothing, we've backstopped the contract on the provider, PFN, in order to fund it ourselves, in which case I've got to fund that effort. And that worst case scenario complicates the ability to seek funding at a level at 42 cents. It just can't happen. Now there are many alternatives. We can backfill this effort here with a general fund appropriation, but it's a sizable appropriation that'll be needed, as you'll see. Wow, that was familiar.
Which one do you want to go to?
Let's start with that one.
Okay.
Yep. And to that end, I have essentially bookends on this effort. The worst case scenario and the best case, because it's going to be somewhere in the middle, and I have no clue as to where it's going to be. And it's been about a year. And to my knowledge, as of last week, they had yet to schedule a public hearing for a year. Lovely. And you'll see how badly that distorts each of the individual areas. Pat, anything else on, any more information on EZNet?
We have not received anything on the Public Service Commission at all. We're not the only county. Excuse me, I'm Pat Coates, for those of you that don't know me.
Jody Hall. Sorry.
I'm the County 911 Coordinator. We're not alone in this. Much of the Lower Peninsula has also started to submit their documents. We're all waiting to hear what kind of funding we're going to get, and no one has a clue.
You'll see how it impacts us in a few minutes here. Let me just go through some of the. That's good enough. You have this in your folders, if you will. Exhibit C happens to be the if you will, the cost directly related only to Motorola's piece of the equation. The first piece is the subscriber units in line 9 of 20.4 million. That's mobile units and portable units. There are some 5,000 to 5,500 units that we would have to purchase. They're very expensive. That's at list price. Next line item is paging equipment. Paging equipment is essentially the fire paging equipment that has to be the second route into a volunteer's call out, because they could be anywhere. They could be at work, they could be at their home, they could be anywhere. You need 2 paths to call them out. Third issue, infrastructure and dispatch, almost 35 million. That's the consoles, that's the back rooms, that's the towers, that's the generators, that's the shelters and so forth. Southfield dispatch, that's the dispatch consoles for Southfield. Southfield is the only community that is not on our system today. They chose to stay off our system. The consoles are about $900,000. Their subscriber units are up and buried in the 20 million. Channels with DDM at 31 sites, dual mode is DDM. Essentially, we're on TDMA. It's a technology platform. The other surrounding counties are on FDMA, an older technology. In order for us to communicate with people here who come into our county, we essentially have to outfit our 31 towers with DDM technologies, 2 channels, if you will. And to that end, that is about $3 million in order to allow them to communicate to us and us to communicate to them. TDMA and FDMA, it's sort of like Microsoft and Apple, if you will. Both are computers, but they wouldn't talk to themselves a while back. Channels in Washtenaw County, there are some holes in Washtenaw County and Howell that exist that the state has asked us to fill in order for us to get to their areas and communicate with them in their areas. The problem with that, of course, is we're filling in holes on behalf of Howell, for example, where they've got a problem today and have chosen not to fill it in, but when we bring in capacity, we pay for it. We have to have a conversation with the MSP. Channels, miscellaneous and such. This up here is that list. This brings it down to what they're offering as a discount. Total cost for Motorola is $46.8 million. That isn't even close to being the total cost of the effort. That's just Motorola's effort. Now what I've got here is that Motorola has proposed a cash flow, if you will, paying a lot early. These 2 ladies, I guarantee you, are going to be tough. They're going to be real hard on these guys here for Motorola. They've done it before with ECW. They're going to do it again. And essentially, they're going to move the cash flow outward, and to that end, that helps me a little bit, but I still pay after a 3-year period of time the same $46 million. It helps you with cash flow, not the dollar amount. And to that end, I'm sure they'll be able to move that cash flow to the right. But because I'm trying to look for the worst case scenario in the model, I've accepted Motorola's proposal as part of the model. Yeah, can you go to A? I think that's this one right here. A is now the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario happens to be, yeah, thank you. What you saw on the total Motorola item is the first line item right here. That's the totals for the first 3 years. I've broken this down into 2 segments. The first 3 years of operation will be the capital. The next 10 years, if you will, is operations, because I have to have not only the ability to construct a system, but to operate it after it gets going. To that end, we have Motorola equipment and other uses, if you will, if we attach to our folks in and around us, which all have the state system, we've got to pay them a fee in order to launch, a one-time fee of $1.5 million. To that end, they're willing to dividend back to us because we're going to be using our infrastructure. They're going to give us a credit because they're going to be sitting on our infrastructure. The credit is 5% on depreciated cost. That $800,000 sitting there as a credit is a placeholder. There's been no analysis done. Essentially half of what we would be paying in one-time items to launch the system. I'm hoping that we can do better than $800,000, but we won't know that until the 3rd year of this implementation. Logging equipment, we started out with an effort here to replace the logging equipment at each of the dispatch centers. They came back with an $8 million price tag, blew me right out of my mind. Couldn't be done. But we're going to have to attach to local logging equipment, and there'll be a cost involved in that. Children's Village, UHF, $200,000. We're going to have to replace the Children's Village system. We're actually going to take them off the basic system and put them on their separate system. They have 75 radios out of about 5,500 in the county, yet they have traffic of 8%. 8% of the traffic is Children's Village on 75 radios out of 5,000. We gotta get them off in order to deal with the capacity issue in this area. We're gonna put them on a P25 UHF system for Motorola. To that end, they ought to be able to communicate between our system and the UHF system. Children's Village, not being a public safety agency, a 911 agency, the county is going to have to fund those costs, if you will. As is the case with jail radios sitting in the jail. The county general fund has to fund those as well. Fiber installs and such, I mentioned that we need upgrades to our fiber optic network as well as ongoing costs, and to that end, that is that line item. I have contingencies. The number of questions and issues that we raised during the course of the conversation begs for a large contingency. And to that end, we have about $4.5 million worth of contingencies on this project. Now, that's the capital piece of the equation, but there's also changes in operations. We have some changes in the operations, which if you go all the way down to, that's outlined, if you will, no, right here. I have some line items that change. For example, we're later than we expected. I've got $28 million worth of cash sitting there being invested. We're getting a favorable variance off of our investment income. So those are the types of things I adjusted in note 17. You need to go down, up a little. Yeah. Radio management software, that's over the air, if you will, communication. Over the air communication would be upgrades on talk groups, upgrades on software. Save a ton of money for our radio shop. Right now, you'd have to bring the radios in from the field. Radio shop, updates the radios, and we give them back. Logistically, transferring radios in and out causes us to have to buy more radios. It's also very labor intensive. EZNet, here's our problem area. Line item 26, EZNet. As I said, the cost is $3.4 million and then $2.7 million all the way across. Sizable dollar amount. That's our problem child here, because I don't know how much we're going to get back from the state in reimbursement. This particular exhibit assumes we get back zero and we fund it all. So this is the worst case scenario. And the only difference between Exhibit A and Exhibit B happens to be the funding related to the EZNet. And you're going to see very quickly as to how difficult this becomes in the worst case scenario. We have the cash. The cash right here is the amount sitting there in Exhibit E, $28 million. I have estimated cash flow. If you can go down to the cash flow is based on, if you will, the operating gains or income, if you will, for 2018. I've added back non-cash depreciation. I've got a provision for a contingency of about 25% of it. I've taken out $750, so I'm holding it back for an issue. One of the things I did not factor in here is inflation during the 13-year period of time. And then ultimately, I'm going to use $3.6 million, $3.7 million as cash flow attributable to capital. And to that end, that's a line item here, 33. Bond issuance. Oh, I'm sorry, it's line item 31. Incremental capital and operating costs, that's a line item from above. You can see the increase in the operating surcharge. The annual operating 6 cent is about $988,000 a year in revenue. And the problem here is obvious. This is line 32. Once we hit that 42 cent cap, I'm done. And I have no control over the number of units, the number of devices that's applied to. So So if the number of devices go down, which they have a tendency to do on landlines, that revenue is liable to decline slightly over the years. Here's where it really gets tricky here. We need to issue a bond in addition to the cash I have to the tune of no less than 25 million. The board has already issued a notice of intent to issue a bond. I have the ability here to pay debt service, if you will, for a few years, only the interest, not the principal. So this excludes any principal payments for the first 3 years. And then in the year after we launch, we wind up paying the full freight on debt service. You can see it jumps up from 704,000 to 2.8 million a year for 10 years. That causes me to have a significant cash flow reduction. That's a real problem. And to that end, that jump, and if you will, towards the end, causes me a problem because I have to solve for essentially the position of where we are September 30th, 2022. I need a positive cash position at that point in time. I can't get to that point in time without doing something akin to a DTRF borrowing. I've talked to the treasurer. He's neither committed nor opposed this plan. He hasn't formally taken a position as of this point in time. But right now, I need to borrow $3 million in 2021 and $8 million in 2022, $11 million, in order to construct the system. The problem here, when you get out, is that when I start paying the interest at this kind of level, I can't pay for it internally. So I'm going to borrow the money from DTRF for a period of 5 years, all the way up until 2027. Plus, right now, we've already baked in $1.6 million appropriation last year in the projections going forward in the operating budget. Now, the problem that obviously creates is I'm borrowing from the DTRF a total of $24 million through 2027. And that's right up in this point right here. And then paying it back in 2 chunks. Now, what happens in 2028? Unrelated to the project that we're talking about is the county issued OPEB bonds many years ago. The OPEB bonds had a 20-year useful life, if you will. They've got paid off in 2027. That annual amount that we pay as a county to fund our OPEB, which we're paying off the debt on, ends in 2027. That frees up about $35 million worth of cash that wouldn't otherwise have to be paid. Now, not all of that is attributable to the general fund. A fair amount of it's attributable to other activities within the county, but at least 60 to 80% of that amount is general fund amounts and available. So to that end, these payments, as described, are essentially covering paying the debt off with the DTRF. The problem that even this approach, which is a pretty aggressive approach, is that I don't build any equity. As much as we have been successful in building equity in order to replace a goodly piece of this project, this system that we've yet to build will have a useful life. And when I get into the mid-2030s, I won't have any cash under this assumption in order to replace that system that we're about to install. Under this assumption. And to that end, you need to go to Exhibit A, or Exhibit B over here. Now, this is the same presentation, with the exception that you can see that SENet costs have been eliminated. In other words, it's eliminated because the state has reimbursed 100% of those costs in this assumption. So if you go down, the situation is drastically changed. I need to borrow $12 million instead of 25. I don't need to borrow anything from the DTRF. In fact, I could not only pay for the interest and principal all the way out, we actually wind up building an equity position in cash of about 25 million out in 2032. That is the difference between the state funding us and not funding us, and it's significant. Critical issue, and we've been asking the state, up until now, on where are you on it, boys and girls, with not much assistance. Now that's essentially the difference that we have right now, and it hinges on how much we're going to get out of the ESINet. That's a pretty complicated funding model. Now, it's, frankly, each line item, I have cited line items and notes, if you will, and those notes are fully explained in the footnotes, Exhibit D to the proposal. It's pretty hairy. It was pretty hairy last year. It's gotten worse, simply because the costs have gone up and it's gotten far more complicated than what we had projected in the past. At this juncture, I guess I'd open it up for questions, if there are any. Mr. Spiz.
Yes, I have one generic question. I've seen you've done the bookends.
Yep.
Where would it be that, I'm gonna say, we somewhat break even, for lack of a way to put it, because I know you have equity on this.
We break even when the state funds 100%.
That's kind of where the number I'm going to, where, because I think from historically, the state's probably not gonna give us 100%, but we're expecting to get something in between there. Do we have a number that we are shooting for that would be manageable, maybe a better way to put it for us?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that we're going to receive anything other than a dictate from Mount High. Second issue here is that when they passed the statute increasing the revenue source, last year before, when I was doing this presentation, they were set at 55 cents as to they moved the 42 cents up to 55. So it gave us some additional latitude in that legislation, in the proposed legislation. By the time they passed it, it was back to 42 cents, which was exactly the same amount as it was prior to their going around and around. So we got no benefit out of that of any significance. The dollar amount that they have generated in new revenue to cover the rest of the state, and there's a lot of communities, is $20 million a year in new revenue. If I get, 2.7, I'm sitting there with, a sizable component of that revenue. The problem that we have auguring against us happens to be most other counties have a limited number of dispatch centers, and the connectivity to 20 dispatch centers in Oakland County has driven up the costs relating to our operations and our capital and the construction of the network. They're not going to be terribly sympathetic to a county that has 20 dispatch centers. Get the sense that good. But I can't pick a number, and because we have so many dispatch centers, I think we're an anomaly compared to some of the other counties. And Pat can confirm that. Most counties have one dispatch center?
Most do, except for Oakland, Wayne, Macomb, and Kent.
Any other questions? I just have to say, I was part of this, one of the meetings. Unfortunately, I couldn't make a lot of them, but when it sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but I'm telling you, they did their due diligence. They've asked the questions, and they put them on the grill. Motorola was sweating when I was in that room. They were coming back with questions, and it was like, no, that's not the question I want. I want this. Can you do this? So they did. This wasn't just one of these throw it together. This is the number. And they looked at all our towers and went through like what was bad about it, what was good. And the radios, yeah, you'll hear they're more than we need now, but it leaves us room to advance in the future. As we know, technology is always advancing. So there's more, these ladies and this gentleman, he did a lot of work, a lot of questions, plus the other committee members. And yeah, it was, when I walked in there, I was like, holy smokes, Batman. This was a lot of information at once, but they did their due diligence, and the numbers aren't, they're not besides the ones that are beside the EZNet, they're not skewed. It is what it is. And the thing that I came out of there is, yeah, it's a lot of money, but is the money that we're gonna spend worth somebody's life, right? Because if we don't have that connection, that one life that pays for all that, you know, we save one person. That's what I feel about it.
This system will improve the coverage. This system will essentially bring us into new technology and give us functions that we've never had before. And Commissioner, you are right. One of the items in the past is that we had probably over-engineered this thing in the past. For example, our tiering was the highest tiers for the radios. We've taken that down because the field officers don't generally use it. Right. Sure, someplace like SWAT would, and other high-end services out in the field, but not the rank-and-file officer, if you will. So we've really done a significant amount of due diligence. But singly, the biggest piece that I think we'll benefit from is that we have a framework for a limited partnership with the state, where we'll be able to connect and be a partner with the state. And every system around us now has built out using the state of Michigan, whereas right now we're on a Harris system. It's an IP-based 4-slot TDMA system, when in fact the other systems are on generally multicast, 2-slot, FDMA, and older technology that we need, but a Motorola system all the way around us. Our ability to connect is significant in our bordering communities in and around other areas.
We have one more question from a spectator.
Yes, Mr. Spectator.
Yeah. Commissioner McGilvery.
The number of PSAPs is a problem. Have we done anything to try to reduce those PSAPs?
We've done tremendous things in the last, since 2002. We have, at that point in time, we had 32 PSAPs. We now have 20. So there's been 12 eliminated in the past dozen years. We incented the PSAPs to come consolidate. In providing dollar incentives, if you will, I hate to say this word, but grants, but it's not really a grant. It's a promise to not get back into the PSAP business. We have done studies, if you recall, they were called CSER studies. We spent anywhere upwards of $600,000 to $800,000 in studies dealing with consolidations. And every single one of those studies demonstrated a savings for the individual communities and improvements, certainly if they go to the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department has the highest standards that exist in the industry in the area of medical services and policing and the communication. And to that end, others do not have that service but maintain that locally. So we've done a lot here to press the issue to consolidate, but this is a home rule state and people are protective of their dispatch areas. And absent a dictate from Mount High, for which we have no authority to do, I'm not sure how we wind up encouraging consolidate. The last item you need to consider here is that once we put in the EZNet and connected these items, regardless of whether we have a PSAP that's operational or not, we still wind up paying the same fixed amount on the EZNet. Now, and on top of it, the benefit that we were going to gain from those people here who consolidated was really those people here who we would not have to replace in terms of consoles or connectivity or ongoing maintenance. So if they haven't yet converted over to another PSAP, once we put in the consoles, once we put in the connectivity, and we do all the work to enable the PSAP, if they come back the next day and say, hey, we want to consolidate, well, we've already sunk costs in that area. So we're at a cusp where the likelihood of someone coming and the benefits we'd get out of a PSAP that would be consolidated is pretty minimal. Pat, is that pretty much where we are?
That's correct. We would reduce some ongoing costs for the EZNet for, future years, but the build-out is still there.
So, I mean, the time's passed. We're hoping to sign a contract by the end of May or early June. And this lady is fantastic. She walks on water. And to that end, really launch the effort here later this summer to implement.
Thank you.
Are we done?
You tell me. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
We're not even close to being done.
We're all, yeah. So, thank you for coming and giving the presentation. We look forward to the future meeting with you. I know you said there'd be more.
If you do.
Yeah. So before we adjourn, I just need a motion to receive and file the documents from the resolution for the Welcoming County. It's been moved by Commissioner Powell, seconded by Commissioner Markham. And then voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And then call it adjourned.
Oh,
Thank you.
You need to receive and file this document.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, sorry, we have one more file. Need a
Por
motion?
favor. Thank
All
you.
right. Motion by Commissioner Wiper, seconded by Commissioner Spiz to receive and file the document that Mr. Dado's bringing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, ayes have it, and
Hello, sir.
stand adjourned.